blessed seekers of divine love. The bhajan that I have decided to sing today describes the blissful condition of a saint's heart. Sant jan barah mas basant. I'm going to briefly go over the meaning. The season of spring remains for the saints forever, 12 months a year. Piyu piyu kahi kahi chin chin nishidin kukat kokil sant. They always say piyu piyu, meaning beloved, beloved, in a voice filled with excessive love, like the warbling, the sweet melodious singing of the cuckoo bird in the month of spring. Kabahu ka jharat drigan asuvan janu jharataru patra anant. Like the leaves falling from the trees in springtime, saints are always seen shedding streams of tears of love from their eyes. Kabahu ka jhumi jhumi madhukar janu gun gunat gunakant. Just like the beautiful yellow flowers of the mustard seed plants, fully blossomed in the month of spring, saints always feel overwhelmed. They feel beside themselves with their heart full of joy, intoxicated with the love of their beloved. Kabahu pramatt fool sarson janu fooli fooli harashant. Like the humming of the bees of springtime, this is the meaning of the line before that one, saints can always be heard singing glories of Sham Sundar while walking in a swaying way in ecstasy. Prema basant kripalu nitya raha ras sarasantana ant. Shri Maharaj says that the season of spring in the world lasts only for 2 months, but the saints' spring season of love lasts forever and continuously keeps them drowned in the ocean of divine love for their beloved. In the ocean of, in fact, the ever-increasing bliss for endless time to come. Prema basant kripalu nitya raha rasa sarasantana ant. So let us sing for a few minutes. बारह मास बसंत संत जन बारह मास बसंत संत जन संत जन संत जन संत जन बारह मास बसंत संत जन बारह मास बसंत संत जन पियू पियू कही कही पियू पियू कही कही छिन छिन निशिदेन पियू पियू कही कही छिन छिन निषिदेन
छिन निषिदेन
पियु पियु कही कही छिन छिन निषिदेन। बोलिए
पियु कही कही छिन छिन निषिदेन
कूकत कोकिल संत संत जान
कूकत कोकिल संत संत जन
कूकत कोकिल संत संत जान
कूकत कोकिल संत संत जन
संत जान
संत जन
संत जान
संत जन
12 मास बसंत संत जान
12 मास बसंत संत जन
संत जान
संत जन
संत जान
संत जन
संत जान
संत जन।
This excessive love for God in the saint's heart is in fact one of the surest ways, one of the surest signs of a divine personality. Which brings us to today's topic. What are the signs of a divine personality? How can we recognize a genuine saint? The question I had left you with. Let us look into this question in depth. The scriptures tell us, Janat tumhi hoi jai. One who attains God becomes God himself. Because the governor of a saint is the Supreme Lord himself, the words of a saint are filled with the power of God. They leave a very profound impression on the mind, something that the words spoken by a man of dry knowledge fail to do. Consequently, doubts that cannot be dispelled even after a lifelong study of the scriptures are easily removed by a genuine saint. This is the first sign of a saint. The second sign of a saint is that his association brings about a gradual detachment from the world and a natural attachment to God. In this respect, a saint can be compared to fire. The closer you get to fire, the warmer you feel. The closer your association with a saint, the more detachment you will experience from the world and the more attachment to God. But bear in mind that a saint does not and cannot affect everyone in the same way. Let me tell you why. Say you take a needle and scatter some needles around, take a magnet and scatter some needles around it at an equal distance from it. Some of these needles are made of pure iron, 100% iron, some 50% iron, some 30%, and some contain no iron whatsoever. The moment you scatter the needles around the magnet, you will find that the 100% needles are immediately attracted to the magnet. The time it takes for the other needles to be attracted to the magnet depends upon the percentage of iron in them. And the needle that does not contain any iron will not be attracted to the magnet even if you place it right beside the magnet. In the same way, many people approach a saint, but all are not affected in the same way. Some turn away immediately from the world as a result of the saint's holy association. Some are not affected quite as much, but nonetheless are attracted to God due to the saint's association. Still, there are some who remain neutral, and some may even go to the extent of criticizing and condemning him. So you see, all are not affected by a saint in the same way. An individual's attraction to a genuine saint depends upon the purity of his heart. The Bible states, "As a nail cannot be driven into a stone, but enters easily into the earth, so the advice of a pious man does not affect the worldly soul, but enters deeply into the heart of a believer." You may test this for yourself. If you claim that your heart is pure to a certain extent, then go to many godly people and spend some time in their company or attending their satsang and listening to the philosophy. Then it will be up to you to judge which among these has invoked the greatest love for God in your heart. If you say that the association of a saint has not had any effect on you, then one of the two things is definitely wrong. If you say that you have spent some time with a genuine saint but still have not derived any benefit, then either you are not a genuine seeker or he is not a saint. You will have to look within and decide which one of you is at fault. If you do indeed possess a pure heart that is hungry for God, then you can be sure that you have not come into contact with a genuine saint. How can you be sure? Because it is impossible for a pure heart to remain unaffected by the divine association of a God-realized soul. Thus, so far we have looked at perceptual evidence in determining a saint to be genuine. Now, let's go into the scriptures and see what we can find out about recognizing a saint using scriptural evidence. The scriptures tell us that when we meet a saint, we must try to discover a very rare and precious quality within him. What is this rare quality? Divine love. Whether someone possesses this love for God cannot be detected just through his words. This supreme love for God takes the form of a sweet writhing, a sweet pain in the heart due to separation from God. If an individual possesses an intense burning desire for God, then understand him to possess everything. On the other hand, if someone is in possession of great theoretical knowledge, but is devoid of this longing for God, then understand him to be useless to you. And about this longing for God, the Bhagavad tells us that when a saint hears his beloved Lord's names, glories, and pastimes, he's unable to control the swelling tide of love. And this love gushes forth, making him throw all precaution to the wind. In other words, when hidden love is manifested in the body of a saint, the saint laughs, cries, screams, sings, and dances like a madman in ecstasy. He's so intoxicated with divine love that he cannot control the rules of propriety, the rules of proper behavior. And yet, a saint does not manifest this hidden love. Most often he does not. He tries his utmost to contain the surging tide of love within him, because it is a divine law of God that gopaniyam, gopaniyam, gopaniyam prayatnataha. Love should never be publicized. What does this mean? This means that if you are unable to control your tears of longing for God while practicing devotion, and someone asks you why you are crying, then you should make an excuse and change the topic immediately. Advise the scriptures. Why? Because otherwise you will be caught by the desire for publicity, which will merely result in increasing your pride and destroying any humility you may possess. And the moment you lose humility, you start going further and further away from God. Thus, love for God, say the Rustic saints, should be like the love of a woman for a man other than her husband. It should avoid the eyes of the world. A saint spares no attempt to conceal his love for God from the world. And yet, he's not able to hide this love for very long. Just as steam in a pressure cooker keeps building up until and eventually forces its way out, in the same way, a spiritually conducive environment heightens the intensity of divine love within the saint's heart to such an extent that it has no other choice but to come gushing forth. It is then that the clever aspirant succeeds in recognizing a genuine saint. Smoke coming from a mountain implies fire on the mountain. It does not make any difference whether or not the fire is visible. Parvato vahaniman dhumavatvat yatra yatra dhumas tatra tatra agnihi. Nyaya Shastra says, where there is smoke, there is fire. In the case of a saint, this fire is visible in the form of the 8 symptoms of divine love. Stambha, Swarabhedo, Tave Patuhu, Vaivarnamashrupralaya, Ityashtau Satvikaha Smritaha. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Tears of love, tremors, horripilation, perspiration, stillness, paleness, choked voice, and unconsciousness. If you spend some time, which I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, in the association of a genuine saint, and create the proper environment, that is, an environment in which he hears his beloved Lord's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes, you will see the 8 symptoms of divine love manifest themselves. But if you approach him with pride and think that you can test him using your material mind and intellect, then you can be sure that he, being fully aware of your intentions, will behave and act in such a way that you will think him to be even more worldly than the worldliest of people. You will then miss the golden opportunity of his divine association. You see, a saint stays away from name and fame. He cares for quality, not quantity. So if you go to him with feelings of pride, he will immediately chase you away. Therefore, we should approach a saint with reverence and faith. Pray to him in your mind to bless you with his grace so that you may be able to recognize him. Whenever and wherever he descends. Whenever and wherever he descends on earth in the form of a human. Remember, it is we who have something to gain from a saint and not vice versa. Therefore, a saint should be approached with reverence. If you spend some time in his company, in his holy company, or if he's not in the living form, then in the association of his devotees, where we're practicing devotion, etc., and listening to the divine teachings. And if you patiently wait, you will see the expressions of divine love being manifested, which is bound to happen sooner or later. The Lord himself states in the Bhagavad that my devotee sings my glories in a voice choked with loving emotion. His heart melts due to extreme love for me and flows out in the form of tears. At times he laughs, thinking me to be near him. At times, thinking me to be far from him, he starts crying uncontrollably. Sometimes he dances. Sometimes he sings at the top of his voice and sometimes dances in ecstasy in order to please me. Such a devotee of mine indeed sanctifies the entire world, says Lord Krishna. Bair preeti nahi durahi duraye. Love cannot be kept a secret for long. Just talk to a recently widowed woman about her late husband and watch her reaction. As soon as she's reminded of him, her eyes become moist and she's not able to control her tears. This implies that even worldly love cannot remain a secret for long. How then can a saint whose every pore is saturated with divine love for God hide it for very long? He cannot. Aanhein na bhari shikwa na kiya. आहें ना भरी शिकवा ना किया फिर भी मोहब्बत छिप ना सकी जब तेरा किसी ने नाम लिया. In these poetic words, it is being said that merely hearing the beloved's name reveals the love that the lover hides so carefully inside of him. The lover referring to a saint, because only a saint can be called a true lover. There was once a saint by the name of Pundarik Vidyanidhi who lived at the same time as Gaurang Mahaprabhu some 500 years ago. Although he was a great devotee of God, yet it was most difficult for others to recognize his divinity, since he led a life of great luxury. There's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad which describes the elevated state of such a divine personality. Grihitvaapindriyairarthan yo na dveshti na hrishyati vishnor mayamidam pashyan savai bhagavatottamah. 11.248 Bhagavad. In other words, even while engaging his senses in contact with their objects, he who is neither repelled, in other words, disgusted by material objects or worldly conditions that are to his disliking, nor elated, in other words, made happy or proud due to worldly conditions that are in his favor, that are to his liking, he indeed is the greatest among saints. Why? Because he views the entire creation as the manifestation of the energy of his beloved Lord. So one day, two devotees of Gaurang Mahaprabhu went to visit this saint. One of them, Mukund, knew about the discrepancy between the saint's inner state and external behavior, but the other one, Gadadhar, was completely unaware of it. When he saw Pundarik dressed in silk and satin, sitting comfortably on velvety cushions and being served by servants and beautiful women, Gadadhar mistook him for a worldly man. Meanwhile, Mukund, reading his friend's thoughts, decided to reveal to him the saint's reality. He recited a shlok from the Bhagavad. Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jighansaya payayadapya sadvi lebhe gatim dhatriuchitam tatonyahum kam vadayalum sharanam brajema. 3:223 Bhagavad. In this verse, Uddhav is addressing Shri Krishna. He says, "My Lord, your glory knows no bounds. The wicked Putna gave you poisonous milk with the intention of killing you, and yet you gave her a place in your divine abode with the following excuse, that because she had fed you milk with her own breasts, in doing so she had assumed the form of your mother." Hearing his beloved Lord being glorified in this way moved Pundarik Vidyanidhi to tears. Then he fell down unconscious. When he regained consciousness, he began to roll on the ground back and forth in ecstasy, and was soon covered from head to toe in dust. So in this way, Gadadhar saw all the 8 symptoms of divine love being manifested in this great devotee, whom he had misjudged earlier. There's a similar episode in the Ramayana. Tulsidas ji quotes the example of Bharat, one of Lord Ram's brothers. Raghuvar varana viloki var vari sameta samaj hot magan vari dhiviraha chadhe vivek jahaj. When Bharat was about to cross the Yamuna river, the bluish waters of the sacred river reminded him so much of the bluish complexion of his beloved Shri Ram that repeating the name Ram again and again, Bharat fell unconscious. The grief of separation was so intense that it could only express itself in the form of unending tears and thereafter unconsciousness. So you understand that we must not judge a book by its cover. We must not look at the external appearance and conduct in determining whether or not an individual is divine. Remember that most saints, 99.9% of them, pretend to be worldly, but inside there's nothing worldly about them. In order to test us, they try to hide their love for God, and yet they fail to do so. If we catch these saints off guard, we can get a hint of their reality. We can get a glimpse of their divinity. Here I should mention that you will have to devote some of your valuable time in order to benefit from the saint's holy association. And if he's no longer in the living form, there's no need to be disappointed. We may benefit just the same by attending his satsangs, where his devotees are gathered together and practicing devotion in accordance with his divine teachings. Because, as you know, God and the Guru are immortal, plus they're omniscient, so they will reward you for the efforts that you make when practicing devotion. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu says, Adau Shraddha Tatah Sadhu Sangoth Bhajana Kriya. Besides giving him some of our valuable time, we must also give him our respect and reverence. We must ask questions, and we are bound to be blessed by his grace in due course of time, which is bound to happen. In due course of time, by how are we blessed? By attaining his spiritual knowledge. He will bless us with his spiritual knowledge, tattva gyan. The scriptures tell us, Gumrauti iti guruhu, Gnati jnanam iti guruhu, Girati ajnanam iti guruhu. He who imparts the true knowledge of God and destroys the darkness of ignorance is the Guru. The Bhagavad also tells us that it is only through the guidance of a Guru that one can attain the divine knowledge of God. Here you may raise an objection. You may say that the scriptures put forth, the scriptures give the spiritual master so much importance that it seems that he's superior to God. Well, in fact, the scriptures put forth 3 views concerning the relationship between God and a saint. The first view is that God is greater. The second view is that the saint is greater. And the third view is that both are equal. These differing views confuse us and render us incapable of arriving at any definite conclusion. So what we need to do is to find out the logic behind these opposing views put forth by the scriptures. First of all, let me tell you that all these three statements are correct, and at the same time, all of them are incorrect. You see, at one place, the scriptures tell us that God is greater than the saint. Na tat samaschabhyadikascha drishyate. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:8. The Gita agrees. The next part requires your concentration, so please pay attention. The Gita states, Na tvat samostyabhyadikah kutonyo lokatrayepya pratima prabhava. 1143. In other words, no one is equal to or greater than God. This is not difficult to understand. God is supreme and we are all his servants. How can a saint be greater than God? A saint is one who has attained God. In other words, an individual soul becomes a saint because of God. Then how can he be greater than God? God is greater than the saint, right? However, the scriptures also tell us that a God-realized soul comes into the possession of all powers possessed by God himself. More man prabhu as vishwasa, Ram te adhik Ram kar dasa, Ram sindhu ghan sajjan dhira, Chandan taru hari sant samira. Tulsidas Ji says that the saint is greater than God. God himself recognizes this to be true. Ye me bhakta hi he parth na me bhakta stute matah mad bhaktasya ye bhaktaste me bhakta tamah matah. Vedavyas. God says that they who are devoted to my devotees are dearer to me than those who are directly devoted to me. Anubrajamyaham nityam puye yetyam hrirenubhi. Bhagavad 11:14-16. Lord Krishna says, I follow the footsteps of my pure devotees, not to protect them, but to be purified by the holy dust of their feet. In fact, God readily forgives one who commits an offense against him, but declares that they who offend his devotees cannot be forgiven by him. Vishnu sthane kritam papam guru sthane pramuchyate, guru sthane kritam papam vajralepo bhavishyati. Vishnu Puran. The Ramayana tells us the exact same thing. Sunu Suresh Raghunath Subhau Nij aparadh risahi na kau Jo aparadh bhagat kar karai Ram rosh pavak so jarai. So the second view is that the saint is greater than God. However, Naraji disagrees with both these views. He says, Tasmin satajjane bheda bhavat. Narad Bhakti Sutra. There's no difference between God and a saint. Both are equal. The Vedas are also in agreement. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasya ite kathita hyartha prakashyante mahatmanah. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:23. In other words, one must worship one's spiritual master in exactly the same manner in which he worships God. It is only the individual who worships both equally who can attain divine knowledge and divine happiness. The Vedas tell us that once that an individual who gains the knowledge of God becomes like God. Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. Please pay attention. Lord Krishna tells Uddhav in the Gita, Acharyam mam vijaniya navamanyeta karhichit namartya buddhya suyet sarvadeva mayo guru. 11:17-27 Bhagavat. Know the Guru to be myself, never disrespect him or find fault with him. Do not utilize your material mind and intellect to comprehend his divine actions. So now what conclusion can we draw from these differing points of view? There are not only contradictions in the scriptures, but we find that even one and the same scripture puts forth different views. For instance, let us take the example in the Ramayana. At one point in the Ramayana, it is written, Jiva ke isha saman. In other words, how can an individual soul be equal to God? In other words, God is greater than the saint. But at another place in the Ramayana, we read, Ramate adhik ramakar dasa, as I just quoted, that the saint is greater than God. And yet, the Ramayana also states, Janat tumhi hui jai, that one who attains God becomes God himself. So again, these opposing views confuse us and make it impossible for us to derive at any definite conclusion. So are all these statements correct, or all of them wrong, or is only one of them correct? As I said before, all these statements are correct as well as incorrect. How? Let's look at them one by one. First, let's go to the statement that God is greater than the saint. This is easy to understand. God is the Supreme Lord and we are all his servants. Then how can a saint be greater than God? A saint is one who has attained God. An individual soul becomes a saint because of God. As such, God is greater than the saint. You see, it is only from the point of view of enjoying supreme bliss that a saint is regarded to be equal to God. Bhog matra samya lingacha Vedant. Otherwise, there's a vast difference between the two. Although a saint comes into the possession of all the powers possessed by God himself, as stated in the scriptures, aprahita papma vijro mrityur vishoko vijighatso pipasah satyakamah satyasankalpah. So although a saint comes into the possession of all the powers possessed by God, there is one power that is not given, possessed by God, which is not given to the saint. What power is that? Jagat Vyapar Varjam. A saint does not possess the power of creation. This task is never allotted to a saint. It is reserved for God alone. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamveshanti. Taittiriya Upanishad 3:1 says that this universe can only be created by God and never by a saint. So keeping this in mind, we are forced to admit that God is greater than the saint. Now let us move on to the second theory, and that is that the saint is greater than God. You see, the ultimate aim of every living being is God realization. Tameva vidittvati mrityumeti nanyaha pantha vidyate yanaya. Shvetashvatra Upanishad 6:8, 3:8. And the Shvetashvatra Upanishad tells us that once we gain the knowledge of God, there's no further knowledge for us to gain. In fact, there's nothing more for us to gain or attain once we attain God. We become completely satisfied. We become more than satisfied. And yet, the scriptures, we also read in the scriptures Naham na yuyam yadritam gatim vidur navam devah kimuta pare surah tanmayaya mohit buddhyastvidam vinirmitam chatma samam prachakshmahe. Bhagavad 2.636. In other words, not even heavenly authorities on knowledge, that is Brihaspati and Saraswati, and furthermore, not even Brahma, Vishnu and Shankar can know him through their individual efforts. Then how can he be known? He can only be attained through his grace, through the attainment of his grace. But now you may ask, is everyone eligible to receive his divine grace? No. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paripasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. 922. God bestows his grace only on those whose mind never deviates from him for even a fraction of a moment. The mind must be constantly attached to God. For example, if a person remains truthful 23 hours a day but becomes a liar for the remaining 1 hour, he cannot be called truthful. In the same way, if someone is devoted to God, let's say 99% of the time, he still cannot be called a true devotee because of the remaining 1%. If an individual is not devoted to God at all times, if he's not thinking of God each and every moment of the day, God will not bestow his grace on him. Instead, he will assume the role of a judge. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyaha. 929 Gita. And as long as he remains a neutral judge, he will not bestow his grace on us. You see, it is only if we are absorbed in him at all times that we become eligible to attain his unlimited grace. And what is the present state of our mind? Instead of being concentrated on God, it is mainly concentrated on the world. We are looking away from God. All we have to do is to turn towards him and our problem will be solved. This, however, is impossible for worldly souls to do on their own. This is where the saint comes in. What does he do? He channels all our worldly attachments towards God. He transforms our attachment to the world to detachment from the world. The pains taken by a saint in performing this arduous task is beyond our comprehension, is beyond human comprehension. Just think who a saint really is. He is one who always lives in supreme bliss, always partaking of the divine pastimes of the Lord in his divine abode. Whatever worldly work he may seem to be performing can be accredited to his divine power Yog Maya, which allows him to perform worldly duties and yet remain godly inside. If such a divine personality even casts a glance in our direction, we should be surprised. Why would a divine being want to even look at worldly people like ourselves, who have nothing to offer but a material body and an impure mind? Just imagine how you would feel if someone were to put a pile of foul-smelling garbage in front of you when you were eating. You would probably lose your appetite and leave the table at once. Think how upset you would be. In the same way, when a saint looks at worldly people, they must seem like this pile of rubbish to him. Why? Because everything we possess is dirty and impure, is material. And everything he possesses is pure and divine. So why would he even look at us? And yet he does. Because it's his nature to do good to others. Not only does he look at us, he talks to us, he laughs with us, he brings himself on our level, he brings himself down to meet us on our level, answers our questions, clears our doubts, and makes the most complicated and often contradictory knowledge of the Vedas, of the scriptures, easy for us to understand. He gives us the greatest knowledge of all. He gives us the knowledge of God. If we have the good sense to accept him as our guru, he takes care of the rest. He assumes our full responsibility not only of this lifetime, but of all lives to come in the future, until the time we also, like him, attain God. A saint goes to great pains to help worldly souls. But this is still not the end of his grace. If after being blessed with his immeasurable grace, an individual refuses to take advantage of it and becomes careless, the guru brings him back on the right track time and time again. If the individual realizes the grace of the guru and recognizes his mistakes, he will continue to advance on the path of spirituality. On the other hand, if he refuses to listen and becomes stubborn, there is no other way for him to go except down. Once an argumentative sort of man went to Gaurang Mahaprabhu. He admitted to Mahaprabhuji that his mind was full of doubts as to Mahaprabhu being a genuine saint. He was honest. Many people in the world are like this man. As soon as they see a saint, their mind goes to work. Well, he looks like a saint. There's definitely an aura about him. He seems to be a saint, but no, he's not. Look at him. He's sitting on such a nice, comfortable chair. He's wearing such nice clothes. He cannot be a saint. But there's something special about him. This man was the same. Gaurang Mahaprabhu told him that it is extremely difficult for a doubting individual to attain God, to realize God. The man was curious. He asked, just how long does it take? Mahaprabhuji pointed to a tree in the courtyard and told the man that he would realize God in as many lifetimes as there were leaves on that tree. Mahaprabhuji had said this in a general sort of way, but the man took him very seriously. He was thrilled to know that his situation was not completely helpless, that he would also one day, sooner or later, attain God. When Mahaprabhuji saw the man's faith, he again had changed his statement and told the man that no, in fact, you would realize God in only a few lifetimes. Again, the man took Mahaprabhuji's word for it and did not even think to ask him, to question him about the change in the statement. When Mahaprabhuji noticed that, he again changed his statement and told the man that, no, in fact, I think I made a mistake. You will realize God in only one lifetime. You see, a saint does not look at our past, he just looks at the present. So when the man heard that he would realize God in that very lifetime, he was so overwhelmed with joy that he lost consciousness. Mahaprabhuji saw that the man had complete faith in him, 100% faith. So he blessed him. What did he do? He blessed him with his grace instantly, momentarily. So the man who had come to argue with Mahaprabhuji left as a God-realized soul on that very day. It means that if we approach a saint with faith and reverence, he can and will take us to God. He will clean the vessel of our heart for it to be acceptable to God. You see, it is the divine law of God that Nirmal man jan so mohi pava, mohi kapat chal chhidra na bhava. It is the law of God that he only accepts those who are pure at heart. It is the saint who performs the job of cleaning layers upon layers of accumulated dirt from our hearts. If it were not for him, we would never be able to realize God. This is why it is said, गुरु गोविंद दो खड़े काके लागू पाए, बलिहारी गुरुदेव की जो गोविंद दियो मिलाए. This is why it is said that the saint is greater than God. The third view expressed by the scriptures is that both God and the saint are equal. Neither one is superior to the other. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Gita 10:10. In other words, the saint attains all the powers possessed by God, and as such, both are equal. For example, suppose you have a $100 bill and another person has 10 $10 bills. Who has more money? You will say that both have the same amount. Similarly, the scriptures say, Bhakti Bhakta Bhagavant Guru Chaturunam Vapueg. Devotion, devotee, God, and Guru are four names of one entity. So now we have taken a look at all the three views put forth by the scriptures regarding God and a saint. I had told you that all these three views are correct, and with Sri Maharaji's grace, I have proven that they are, and as taught by Sri Maharaji himself. And I had also told you that all three of them are incorrect. How are they all incorrect? To say that God is greater than the saint, or that the saint is greater than God, or that both are equal, implies that we are talking about two different entities. The fact is that God and saints are both one and the same. God himself incarnates on this earth in the form of a saint in order to take worldly souls like ourselves across the ocean of Maya into his divine abode. So now let us revise a little bit. All of us are looking for divine bliss, which can be attained only upon God realization, because as you have heard many times during this sadhana shivir, that God is the personified form of unlimited divine bliss. However, God is beyond the reach of our material senses, mind, and intellect. He can be attained only through the attainment of his grace. And the attainment of divine grace is dependent upon self-surrender to him. Furthermore, it is the mind which has to be surrendered to God, since the mind is the performer of all our actions. It is the cause of bondage as well as liberation. But since our mind is attached to the world, it is surrendered to the world, first we will have to detach it from the world in order to attach it to God. And in order to attach our mind to God, we need the help of a spiritual master who can guide us and tell us about the path we must follow in the process of self-surrender to God. This is why we have been talking about the spiritual master for the past number of days. And all we have to do, thus to conclude, all we have to do in order to surrender our mind to God is to practice devotion as prescribed and taught by our beloved Gurudev. The greatest help for us in this regard is the loud chanting of God's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. We must sing in a loud voice as we do the bhajans and kirtans that glorify God. Tulsidas ji tells us in the Ramayana, कल युग केवल हरि गुण गाहा, गावत नर पावहि भव थाहा, यही कली काल न साधन दूजा, जोग न जप तप व्रत मख पूजा, राम ही सुमिरिय गाइय राम ही, संतत सुनिय राम गुण ग्राम ही. In Kali Yuga, devotion to Shri Krishna can only be practiced through the means of Sankirtan, Kirtan. And what are the means to do this Sankirtan? We must practice being a karma sannyasi and do the following in private. Number 1, renouncing all worldly duties. Have Shri Krishna stand in front of you. Number 2, think of yourself as his servant. Number 3, chant glories of his names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. The most important thing to keep in mind is that this chanting must be equipped with meditation on Shri Krishna's divine form, which is called Rup Dhyan. While meditating on him, we must constantly long to see him, hear him, and experience him with all our senses. We must shed tears in front of him in order to attain his divine grace and divine love. We must think in the following manner: when will the day come when these eyes of mine will behold the supreme beauty of Shri Krishna, the all-attractive Lord? When will my eyes feast upon that beauty who is more beautiful than countless Kamdevs put together? When will I hear the melodious sound of his flute? When will I inhale his divine fragrance? When will I attain his divine touch? Constant meditation in this manner is called sadhana, practice of devotion. As we advance in our practice, we will start getting divine experiences. Then our mind will become fixed on God. Eventually, we will start experiencing ecstasy. And in this way, our love for Shri Krishna will increase moment by moment, day by day. And in this way, we will continue to move forward on the path of spirituality. With these words, Bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki, Srimad Sadguru Sarkar ki, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe.